Okay, we're going to do bottle stoppers, and what I'm going to do is, in just a moment, I will be handing out a pass-out sheet, but I know what happens in a school situation when you pass out papers ahead of time. You all get reading, and I don't want you to read just yet. I want to just mention a little bit, Chuck and I were on the spot this time, but we thought we could do a good job. What we're going to do is talk about bottle stoppers. He's going to be turning one very shortly. I'm going to do a little bit of talking, but some of the things we're going to cover. Why we do bottle stoppers. That was my idea. Chuck's done one so far, so that makes it a perfect situation.
Well, I would add one thing. I didn't do one until after I volunteered to do this.
That's true. That's true.
He said, you know, we're sort of in a pickle, and maybe I'll talk to some of the experts, and you can see the experts. There's a lot of experts in this. Well, you know, maybe we can reach out and get an expert to volunteer. But if you want somebody that's never done one, I'll go ahead and try. I mean, what can happen? Oh, Chuck, that's the best idea ever. And so there I was. The other thing that we did is I called them up. I said, "You want to get together before we do this?" That was worthwhile. We did. We got together and we did a bottle stopper. We talked through it and we sort of said, "All right, what do we want to do at this meeting?" So I think that's a good learning for me. If you have a couple of people, get together for a little bit just to plan it out. You're back on, Scott.
Okay. I did a little bit of reading, then I couldn't find this till this afternoon. But on the website, Steve Russell's Lathe Talk, anybody gotten on there? It's kind of interesting. I hadn't been on it before. There's also a website, woodturningvideosplus.com. Anyway, in this area called Lathe Talk, I'm kind of adapting this, but why do bottle stoppers? Well, why do anything in turning? And what he said was that the first glimpse of a figure in a log or a blank or something like that, it's kind of like a drug that we become addicted to. And I'll say stoppers are like that, only instead of using big logs and making big bowls and so forth, I need a quicker fix. And so I go to things like this. There's a large branch, a piece of a walnut branch that looked like it was dead. Out of Sedona, Arizona, I was able to walk around a little bit, pick up a piece of pine, pinyon pine, and boy, the growth rings are just really tight on this. In fact, I'll just pass it around. And then one that I always like to show, this comes from the farm I grew up on in Pennsylvania, but this is grapevine. And that has dried for about 2 years. But before it dries, it just goes like this. But tonight what we're going to do, I've got several blanks here, and I realized that the way I do them is going to be different from the way Tom does them, different from the way Dan does them, or Bob. And who came up with these? What was your name?
Lenny.
Lenny? And Lenny. And he showed me how he attaches his to the lathe. I don't do that. I use a certain thing. I use an arbor as a Morse tube, has a 3/8 by 16 thread on it, and it has a little groove. This is available from Ruth Niles, and it'll be on your sheet. That's what I use, and she has this little groove on here so that you can use it to cut the threads on the piece of wood. I don't like that, but we're going to use this arbor anyway. Okay? And so what I do is get a blank for whatever it happens to be. Sometimes I like the mark on, sometimes whatever. I'm going to start out with one that's fairly simple. I guess we'll use cedar tonight, since we have a couple things out of cedar. And this one, I'll do something else that's already tapped. We'll do this one first, because this one's already tapped. So you can put that on the lathe. And what I usually do is cut them about 3 inches long and about 1.25 inches or so. And now I can piece these out.
Oops. And that shield yourself on the lathe because he's going to hit you.
Pass them over.
Won't hurt much.
Yeah, Seaver's light. Seaver's light. That one comes.
This doesn't feel like cedar, I'll put this fruit in there. That's it?
Yeah, now what's happened is this, this doesn't seed in there sometimes.
Yeah, I'll wax it.
You continue to turn there? Yeah, that's tight.
Put them all together.
Okay, what's that? The arbor is $25. That's about, that's pretty much the same no matter where you get it. Okay, what I normally do though is he's setting that up. I will drill a hole. What I'm using is 3/8 by 16 threads on this arbor. And so I drill the hole under 3/8, usually about 5/16, and whatever is the drill size for a 3/8 by 16 tap. If you're working with
5/16 is close enough.
if you're working with Cocobolo, you can get away with one thing. If you're working with sumac or something that is kind of punky, then you gotta have coarser threads. And also, if you have something kind of punky, I put some CA glue down in there, kind of turn it around a little bit and then spray it with the fixer before I tap it. So what Chuck's gonna do is I'm gonna be tapping these threads in here. Chuck's gonna start, we have a blank on here. We're using the tailstock, and I like to do that, especially when you're getting it down to round. And initially, you're gonna probably use what?
I use a roughing gouge.
Roughing gouge?
A spindle roughing gouge? Is that what you meant to say?
Spindle roughing.
What we must remember.
In terms of tool rests, I made one of these tool rests with just a piece of round bar stock that I used to use. I have a lathe just exactly like this, the one for sale. And I really love this kind of a tool rest, so I don't know how if you like that or not, that's fine. Here's this one, if you want. Okay, Chuck, you want to go ahead?
Well, I'm gonna see whether I can figure out how to get this speed up. We're at 410. Turn to 90. This one doesn't have a dot.
Yeah, it does, but it doesn't go fast enough.
Put a new motor on it.
Oh my, these are in great shape. Let's see. I intended to do this earlier.
We tested it before to make sure it wasn't going too fast.
You succeeded.
It wasn't going too fast.
Yeah, you could have threaded it, that's it.
While we're talking about that, this is the spindle roughing gouge that Bob was talking about. This is a spindle gouge, but you can see it's a round shaft all the way through, so this is strong. And you could use this, but you'd have to be careful on the outside of the bowl. But this tang here can break right off, and people can hurt very bad. So if you've got a flat piece on the end of your tool, that's just a tang, don't use it for a bowl.
The reason, don't use a spindle roughing gouge for a bowl, I don't care what it's got. And the reason is I broke a 1-inch tool rest first. Using an oak bowl blank with a spindle roughing gouge before I ever knew what the name was. And I went over for size. Don't use a spindle roughing gouge for anything with spindle curve.
I broke one.
Yeah, but you got a bevel blade, you can cut it.
I would use the wood blade.
Yeah, but you can make a spindle with. All right, we're just gonna check the separation here, and I've already sharpened the tool, so we should be good to go. We're just gonna take them down slow because we don't wanna hurt these.
Now, we have to take care of this.
These are wood sources. And just lift your handle up, find the bevel, come on down. Take a little bit off from each end, you're not gonna get probably big pieces coming off.
you.
All right, now we'll see what we got here. So we've got fairly plain piece of wood, straight grain. We don't have any cracks in there, so we don't need to worry about that. That is not seated at this end. So I assume we're gonna come in with the parting tool and seat that properly, which is what we did before.
Yeah, what happens is, especially on, you know, if you get a piece of a branch or something like that, it isn't quite squared on the end, even if you cut it with a miter gauge and a bandsaw and so forth, it may not be quite square. The other thing on these, and we're kind of getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but the diameter of this arbor is just about the right diameter for many of the tips that you can get. Okay, this is Ruth Niles tip, this is Craft Supply, and there are other places that have them. They're within 1/8 of an inch or a little bit less. If you're really fussy about the exact diameter, then you may need to do a little bit of modification here. But what I try to do is get down, well, I'm gonna square this, I'm getting ahead of myself, okay?
Yeah, we're gonna square this.
I'm sorry, I got ahead.
That's all right. Remember, this was the first time, so he walked me through this. It was a good process. So you just take your handle down. I don't know, lower that down a little bit. Since it's already round, we can move it a little bit.
Start. What
And
happens is these typically aren't parallel.
he taught me to go right into the meadow by just a hair. So we're just lifting the handle up and cutting. We're not scraping.
You might get a twofer out of that.
Yes, sir.
They can't see into your tool. If you can rotate that lathe a little bit, take the, no, the other way, you take the tailstock and go that way, so
Wait.
then the camera can get a better picture of that.
Okay.
So
Tailstock
leave the
this way?
And take the tailstock out, that way you can sort of see behind it. All right, that should do it right there. Yeah. There you go.
Matthew's gonna block it.
Now, why don't you go up to the lathe and see what it looks like.
I would say that you can't see it yet.
But you can see the tool, you can see everything, but the cutting point, they'll know what to do. Yeah.
We good to go?
Yeah.
All right, it just popped off.
You don't have to worry anymore about getting hit.
There's the piece that just came off. So we can come back square against it.
So you tighten this up by turning it, and then bring the tailstock up against it.
All right, now we're square against that.
Now, what happens typically, just trim it. What happens typically, once you true that up and run this in, it isn't round anymore. I mean, it's round, but it isn't concentric with the arbor, so let's just give it a try. Not bad.
It's actually pretty good.
Yeah, so you run that thing up.
I'll use my fingernail, things are smooth, just to figure out where we're going.
But sometimes it isn't, so don't, you don't panic.